Women's IT World. Women's IT World. Women's IT World.
Welcome to episode 3 of season 5 from the Women's IP World Annual Podcast, a podcast series that's shining a spotlight on women in intellectual property. I'm your host, Michele Katz, and I'm the co-founding partner of the law firm Advitam IP, which in Latin means Intellectual Property for Life. We are based out of the US in Chicago. Me and my firm are hosting this podcast on behalf of Northlands Media PR and Marketing Limited, based out of the UK in London. They are the publishers of the Women's IP World Annual and the Global IP Matrix magazine. The 2025 edition of the Women's IP World Annual can be found digitally at www.womensipworld.com. Again, that's www.womensipworld.com. And you can listen to the annual as well on your favorite podcast app. For those that are attending the big IP conferences, check for the Northlands Media booth so you can get a hard copy there. I'd love to welcome Adriana Barrera, founder and managing partner of Barrera Asociados, a law firm based in Peru. Did I get all that right, Adriana?
Hello, how are you? Thank you, Michelle. I'm very happy to be here, and you are fine. That's my information. How are you, everyone? Very happy to be here to share some information about myself and my experience.
Yes. And so today, and Adriana, you and I have known each other for several years, more than several. We're going to be talking about non traditional trademarks. That's the subject matter for today. But before we do that, I'd love to know, and please share your background, how you got into IP, and when you started your firm.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes. Oh, my journey is quite like long. I'm going to be this year, next year, 2026, turn 30 years of practice in law, and the 30 years I've been practicing IP. And really, to make the short story, is that when I started in law school in Peru, because I'm Peruvian and I've studied in Peru, IP, it was not as famous as it is nowadays. So really, there was only one course of IP, like general IP. But that the way I entered into this area is because I had to do an internship in a government institution. So it was fun because there was an opening in the trademark and patent office in Peru. So I decided to go there. Basically, I did not know about much of trademarks or patents, but it was located very no close to my university, and I didn't want it to drive a lot or being in a traffic jam. So I said, okay, let's go to that internship. And then when I got to that internship, I realized and I start discovering this marvelous and this wonderful IP experience in my life. So it was like something like very not a decision, but more because I wanted to have like easy, yeah, my time at that time. I was young and I didn't want to get complications in my life. That's fun.
So you ended up in IP to avoid traffic. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. It was fun.
Okay, so Peru is located. Can you please give us a little
Yes.
geography
Yeah.
lesson? And I know it's part of the Andean region, so tell us a little bit about what that means.
Yes, of course. Well, Peru is a South American country and is located near the Pacific Ocean. And which is interesting from Peru, and I don't know if the audience is aware of that, is that we are like in the Pacific, so we are in the west side, and we are bordered with several countries. So we are bordered with Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia, and Chile, and of course the Pacific. So, as part of some regional structures, we are part of the Andean Community, which is an organization that is where four countries are members. Is Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. Venezuela used to be for many, many years ago, but now is not member the Andean community. And which is interesting for this community is that we as countries share some law legislations that help us to interact in different areas of trade, commerce, regulations, law, of course, including intellectual property. To make it more clearly, for example, many of the statutes and law that we use in Peru to handle trademark, patent, and copyright law are Andean Community legislation, which the name is decisions. Decisions are the name of the statutes in Andean Community.
So, how does that work? Is there a singular office, like a headquarters? Like if you think about, maybe the office, the OHIM office in Alicante. Can you do a single filing to cover the countries that are still in the like Andean Pact?
Yes, no, no, in this case it's not. And it's something, and it's a question, Michelle, that always clients or colleagues ask me, no, because sometimes they think that this works like the European office, and it's not like that, that they have an office in Alicante. No, it's not like that. We have, of course, a court of appeals, a court that handles some cases that go to revision, and they can issue this type of analysis when national office of this country member countries ask to give a revision or give an opinion of an analysis or a way of solving a case. But really, in these Andean community countries, each one handles their IP matters, for example, trademark registrations or patents or whatever, nationally, okay? So it's not that if you register a trademark, you will have protection in the four countries, okay? What you need to do is to file in each country. So if people ask me, so what's going on if I cannot file for in an Andean community way or office? For what it's good? Well, first of all, it's for harmonization, to have, okay, it harmonized the four countries in the same way. But something very important that we have in the law, basically in trademark law, is the Andean community opposition. What that means, that for example, is I file a trademark, I try to file a trademark in Colombia, for example, and someone wants to oppose file opposition against that trademark, that filing in Colombia, and that they don't have basis of opposition in Colombia, but they have the basis in Peru, Ecuador, or Bolivia. I can use that evidence, that registration, that information that I had in Peru for a case in Colombia. That's something that is very, 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 very useful. Other issue that also works a lot is for cancellations. Here in South American countries, there is a figure that is a cancellation action for non-use. That means that if any trademark holder has not used a registered trademark for 3 years, 3 consecutive years, any third party may request the cancellation action. So if someone files you cancellation action, the trademark holders has to defend and has to file the evidence to prove that the trademark has been used. And in that case, if the cancellation action has been filed, for example, in Bolivia, you can file all the evidence in the four countries. So not only is valid the evidence of use in Bolivia, but you can file the evidence of use from Peru, from Colombia, and Ecuador. So I think that are the two main, maybe important things that is very useful to take into consideration the Andean community statutes.
And Venezuela stepped out of that
Yes.
seemingly huge benefit. Is that because you think that the political situation there?
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
Because I will tell you that when I started my career in IP, that I will say 30 years ago, Venezuela was part. And then after all these political situations and that stuff, Venezuela wanted to be out of all this type of laws, legislations, or international treaties that they consider were not beneficial to them according to their way of thinking, no? Of their political situation. No, so they were out, and I think they are losing these benefits. I think Venezuela because they are not part of this international legislation.
Yes, that was quite a decision that was made. Because I can absolutely see the benefits. And so, if someone, just to dig a little deeper into this, because this is quite different, I think, than what most people experience unless they're practicing in the Andean region. If you have a registered trademark in Peru and there are infringements in Colombia, are you saying that you can then file? Well, now we're talking about infringements, like actual infringements, as opposed to just trying to cancel or oppose a mark.
Exactly.
What if we take it to the courts? Can you use evidence? Can you use the evidence that you have based on your Peruvian registration and, try to either with customs or in the courts, um, try to stop those infringements?
Yes, that's an interesting question, and also always people ask for that. And no, it's not the same rule. The rule
Okay.
I explained you is for cancellations and
Only
for
limited.
opposition.
Okay.
Exactly, but it's important to tell you that sometimes, even though it's not mandatory for the national offices to take into sorry to take into consideration that evidence, normally if you have it, you can put it because that may show, for example, bad faith. So even though
Mm,
the rule is that you to file a trademark infringement case or patent infringement or copyright infringement, you need to show the rights registered or recognized, no, in case of copyright, in
mhm.
the country you want to file the claim. But of course, if you have evidence in other country, I always advise to file it. It's not going to be strong, but maybe we can have a case, and of course, it's going to be much more difficult to win it. But we can find something like related to bad faith or unfair competition, and it can work. But the rule is you have to have the registration in the country.
Right. And that could lead to maybe settlement, even if you don't take it all the way through to trial. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to move on to the article, but before we do, we're going to take a quick break and continue our discussion when we're back.
The Women's IP World Annual 2026, now recruiting outstanding women leaders in IP. The Women's IP World Annual has officially launched its research process for the 2026 edition. Since 2018, we have had the privilege of working with influential and highly respected women from across the globe, and we are now inviting exceptional candidates to join this distinguished community. For each country or jurisdiction, only 3 women will be selected to feature in this exclusive annual publication. This is an opportunity to showcase your professional journey, highlight your achievements, and share valuable insights into the IP landscape within your jurisdiction and internationally. By securing your country profile package, you will position yourself among the leading voices shaping the future of intellectual property on a global scale. If you would like to be part of our 7th annual edition, we encourage you to contact us today and take your place in one of the world's most recognized platforms dedicated to celebrating women in IP. Call +44 0 203 813 0457 or email info@womensipworld.com. For more information, www.womensipworld.com.
Welcome back. So, you wrote an article for the Women's IP World Annual for the 2025 edition on non traditional trademarks. So, let's talk about what what are people talking about now when we focus on non-traditional trademarks? And by the way, for the listeners, if you have the electronic or the hard copy, Adriana's article starts on page 36. Take it away.
Okay, yes, I will tell you. This is a very interesting matter, and when I decided to write about it, I say this is something that is on the table. A lot of discussions about this in Latin America and worldwide. You know that when you know Michelle, we are always traveling to different conferences, discussions, no, worldwide, and we see that non-traditional trademarks is a very important a matter to be discussed. So my intention is to promote the protection of non-traditional trademarks in Latin America countries, but basically in Andean community countries, because I think not everybody knows that the non-traditional trademarks in Andean community countries, it's very advanced. It has an advanced legislation, and it's something that is really, really accepted by national offices. Basically speaking, for example, Peru, Colombia, that Ecuador, Bolivia, but if I can focus in my country, it's very easy to obtain non-traditional trademark registrations. And when I talk about non-traditional, I talk about sound trademarks, in motion trademarks, color trademarks, three-dimensional trademarks, and those that are not the traditional ones as a logo or or a word mark. No, so I can, and in my article, I show different examples and cases law, no case law of different trademarks that we obtain the registration, and which really was very helpful for different brand owners. I may say that many global companies has made sometimes a decision to file non-traditional trademarks first in Peru or any Andean community country, because it's easy, it's not costly, and the time frame to obtain the registration, it really not go more like 5 months, 4 or 5 months. So it's something that brand owners can have to take a look.
Okay, I have a question about that because here in the US, it's a little bit more complicated and you have to prove acquired distinctiveness. So is that something that's required? That, it sounds like that's not required in Peru.
Yes, depends on the case. Basically, if you prove that the trademark is distinctive enough, you can file it with no demonstration or not additional evidence that shall prove that the trademark has acquired distinctiveness. That means that if you, for example, you have a color trademark, if you show it, represent it accordingly, or a sound trademark, you have to represent it accordingly, and that's it, and the trademark office consider is distinctive enough, and it complies with other requirements according to law, the trademark registration goes softly. But in other cases, and it will depends, the analysis is a basis on each case particularly. In some other cases, of course, we have to show that the trademark has acquired distinctiveness. And in those cases, what we apply is the secondary meaning no, este principle, and we have to show it with evidence, with market service, and additional evidence. That we also have that such cases, but you have both sides. But most of the cases, they go through, and it's very easy.
And you had mentioned 5 months
Yes,
or some very short amount of time to obtain
yes,
registration.
yes.
Is that from the filing date? It's only that length of
Yes,
time?
it's for the Friday date, because one of the things that Peru has in the trademark office is that trademark registrations are analyzed very, very quickly. Sometimes when it comes to contentious, so something that there is a rejection, a first instance, or an opposition filed by third parties, of course, in those situations, the case will take, of course, more time, like 1 year and a half, or 2 or 3, and that's a nightmare. But if you have a trademark registration that goes smoothly, you will have it from filing 5 months, because you file it, you comply with the formal requirements. If that's fine, then the trademark goes to a publication at the official gazette. Then you have 30 working days for third parties to file oppositions. Then the trademark office does an analysis, and if they consider that the trademark should be registered, then they issue resolution. So I will say 4 or 5 months, that will be the time, in case we don't have any like denial or opposition or something like that. No, and I have like some cases, many cases like that for non-traditional trademarks. So it's something that's from our routine work.
Probably the jaw is dropping for most of us that work in the US or are waiting and waiting for a US registration. Just to give you a just by comparison, if you file a trademark in the United States, it's taking about 6 months just to get assigned an examiner. So before anything happens. Now, prior to COVID, and the office would say it was published on their website. It said, 3 to 4 months. And then COVID hit. There was definitely an uptick in filing. People are home. They're, creating. There's a lot of trademarks being filed. It took a while for the trademark office to update their webpage, and they would say, it still said 3 to 4 months. And I was telling clients, you got to ignore what it's not. It's more like 6 to 8 months. And finally, they updated their webpage to show 6 to 8 months. So we're still quoting that. I think that they're a little bit faster now. I mean, for goodness sake, we're like, 5 years out, but it takes a while yet here. So 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 bravo, Peru, for for a short time.
No, 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 and that is why when I told you that is why some companies, that the global companies have discovered that, and sometimes they decide to do their filings, sometimes non-traditional filings in Peru, for example, or Colombia, Ecuador, or Bolivia. No, I will say Bolivia. I'm not sure about. I think Bolivia takes more, but I think for sure Peru or Colombia are faster. No, so that's also some global companies already realize that, no, and they try sometimes our South American countries as first stage for their protection, for their global protection.
So there were a lot of graphics in your article. I noticed the shoes and quite a few examples. So for those that want to dig a little bit deeper into non-traditional trademarks and various kinds, please do check out Adriana's article. We're actually hitting the end. So I have one last question for you, and that is whether you have a mantra or a favorite quote. Words that motivate you, inspire you, and you can inspire others. And it can be in Spanish too. You'll just have to translate.
Okay, no, but I think maybe more like a mantra is something that, not something that I read from someone. Is something that I think impulsed me, and since I was like young, I said that thinking on that, no, and I can tell it in English more like a mantra that I think is like in Espanol is el cielo es el límite, so is like sky is the limit, no? So it's something that I always
Hmm.
have in my. It's a set, no? It's a famous set, but what I mean for that is that what you want in life, if you are a hard worker, you are focused, you can get where you want. Okay, of course sometimes the way is not going to be easy. Sometimes you have to get some steps back. Sometimes you will fall, you will find stones, rocks, whatever in your way. But I think if you are really focused and you want to go to any place, if you get focused, you will get. So I'm very, I will say that I will be 30 years, will be turning 30 years in next year in 2026, as a lawyer, no, an IP lawyer, no, an attorney. And I will say that my route is like was long, but was very nice. I think I feel very, very happy. I think I have a lot more time and a lot of things to share with the community, learnings, of course, because what I like from this community is that you can share your own experience, but also learn a lot of many other colleagues, and that's the nice thing of being in this beautiful IP world.
With the 30 years of practice, when did you actually start your firm? How long ago?
Oh yes, well, my firm is going to be 15 years next
Oh,
year also,
okay.
so it's going to be a very interesting
It's the
year,
half
no?
life.
Yeah,
Okay.
imagine 15.
Well, I know. So we're gonna, yes, and mine's turning 14. So
Wow,
we're gonna celebrate next time we see each other
of course.
on this achievement because we're here to stay, right?
Okay, that's fine. Of course, we have to do that. And I tell you, Michelle, it's nice that it's all very important to say that you know, and as myself and many other very nice colleagues that we know each other, very brilliant lawyers that women lawyers that I still learn a lot of from them. Is that it's nice that we can like with our own experience we can show younger lawyers and professionals that you can have your own and you can do great, no? So I think it's nice, no, that we can be part of the community.
Yeah, that we teach them, right, the younger attorneys that the sky is the limit. For
Exactly.
them, it's probably solar system because of,
Exactly.
you know,
That's
because of
fine,
the
yes.
ceilings we've, yes, exactly, that we've crushed. So Adriana, thank you so much. Mil gracias for coming and talking with me today and letting us shine a light on you and your 30 years in IP law. To our listeners, please like, follow, share with your friends and colleagues, but also feel free to send comments and questions. Take care, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you, Michelle. It was a wonderful experience. Thanks.
Such a pleasure.
Women's IP World. Women's IP World. You have been listening to the Women's IP World podcast, hosted by Michele Katz from Advitam IP in Chicago, USA, on behalf of Northlands Media PR and Marketing Limited in the United Kingdom. Women's IP World.